Hi. So we are Team Future ViewAR. That's spelled with an AR at the end. So we are interested in taking physical spaces that people care about and then changing them so that people can see the impact of climate change in their immediate context, in their immediate environments that they care about. So the application that we've made, the vision, is to kind of make something that people can see in the next, the effects of climate change in the next 10, 20 years in the future.
Yeah. So each of our
Try not to shake so much.
Okay.
So for the gameplay, which you'll see in a second, we present the user with two different scenarios.
I'm sorry we have to go on the lowest quality setting just to
Yeah.
keep the stream
And
going.
there's a slight
Yeah.
lag. There's
So-
kind of a slight lag.
We present the user with two options. So this first option is it's 5 minutes before your meeting. So you have a choice. Are you going to take a bike or a car?
And depending on the choices that you make, different pieces of the environment change accordingly. And so you can see here, again, once it pops up, I've done something that has increased the smog levels in my environment, and it's also increased the water level. And so you can see that there's, as I move around.
Not yet.
Can you describe
I told you
what
not to
you're-
move. I told you.
What
Yeah,
you're
I'm
actually, a lot of people don't know what this is, and our
Oh,
viewers
yeah,
may
sure.
not. So maybe describe
Let
this
me-
just for a minute, what that is.
Okay, so I think the reason why we decided to do the HoloLens is because, I guess AR has a very high barrier entry, but we wanted to sort of incorporate this into our application because we were thinking of originally doing a sort of mirror display where people can see like with other people like how their choices impact it. But we decided to do the HoloLens because, you know, for demo purposes it's easier. And also, even though the device itself is really expensive, you know, Microsoft actually is a very like active proponent of like helping with sustainable issues. Like I'm not sure but they actually like partner with the UN as well to help like create environmental simulations like in their Cambridge location. So yeah, it's lagging still.
Yeah, it's like, and just leave it running.
I need to give our server a hug because it just.
Don't make it full screen. Just leave it like this. It might work.
Yeah, and so the gameplay that we kind of like to start out with the process, we sort of thought of like simple questions like, you know, which one's easier, a car versus a bike, but then as you progress with the decision making, things don't become as clear cut because some things are, I mean, like it's like, do I, you know, throw away like a food wrapper, or do I throw away plastic? Like some of those decisions are, you know, very obvious, and even when you make those decisions, like even if you recycle plastic, the thing is, you know, plastic still takes about 491 degrees Fahrenheit to heat, and the thing is the emissions from that are still dangerous. So yeah, you recycle, but you still have some impact. So with some of these decisions, they're not as clear cut. Like with this one, you're at a store and you have to decide whether or not, because you left your canvas bag at home, so you need to decide whether or not you're going to go back home to get your canvas tote, or you need to decide whether or not you're going to spend the 10 cents for the plastic bag. So there are some decisions we make daily where, you know, regardless of what we do, they're going to have an impact.
And the beauty of AR is that it's mixed reality. So when you actually, it's actually combining with your real scenario. We have thought about like combining those scenario with our own the surrounding that we are in. Like for example, for the coffee cup scenario, we are actually thinking when people are going to the coffee table, they're actually going to make those choices because for global warming, it's such a big concept. Normal people couldn't understand it from a very actual sense. So those help people to associate their daily decisions with a big issue. So we think this application would have a big future use.
So
Yeah.
in this context, for example, like the choices that the person has made, I wish I could show you, has
Trying to
caused
do a high quality
has caused-
stream. There we go.
the smog levels to rise and has caused the water level to rise. So you can see that this device is actually picking up the environment once he stops clicking on buttons. You can see on the side here, there's a water simulation and it's kind of filling up this space. So part of the table is filled up and part of the wall is filled up. So it becomes a very meaningful experience, especially when these devices get better at rendering things. And we also have a website component, so depending on the choices that people make in this application, we're actually collecting this information on a website. And then we're able to basically understand the decisions that people make in different geographic locations, and also changes over time. For example, if you use this in an educational setting, how do children's experiences, ideas change from before to maybe after they've learned something? So it could be useful for that.
Yeah, and I think, so now to talk about challenges, obviously there are a lot of challenges because, you know, we just decided to take the plunge and try to, you know, this was all of our first time even interfacing with the HoloLens. This was a lot of team members. Actually, 2 of our very integral team members are just not here because they had other obligations. But yeah, this was a very challenging thing because each of us, I think, had to play multiple roles. Like most of us had to do, you know, coding and asset creation and like trying to like manage like how to integrate these properly into the HoloLens, because scale is a huge issue with the HoloLens, whereas like in virtual reality it's easier because, right, you have a box, so you know how your object scales to the box. So just dealing with the issues of scale, even with the database, like figuring out how to connect like Microsoft, like the Microsoft to Unity, like to get to like this database, which is like our so just connecting all the components.
And there's kind of technical challenges too. So we've built this sort of simulation engine that, depending on your decisions, there's kind of a decision tree matrix kind of thing that influences different aspects of the environment. But designing for these things is actually a challenging thing, because the infrastructure, I think, for designing virtual simulations on a desktop is quite developed. But for designing on devices like this is quite challenging. So it takes 5 to 10 minutes to actually run it on this, to deploy it from the computer to this. And so the feedback loop is quite challenging, and the tools are sort of clunky. And so it was quite challenging to get this running. And so I think in the future, as more and more people become interested, it's probably going to get much more streamlined.
And when you're actually in the experience like he was, it's obviously much better, because with
it
the
also
water,
looks very
with
realistic.
the water you can't necessarily tell. But again, a lot of functions had to be made, like even just the water level rising and and lowering, and the occlusion like of the different things. So there was a lot of, I mean, I think saying it's challenging is even like understating all of the different things that we somehow managed to do.
Really great learning experience.
Let's
You
try
guys
it
are
one more
out of
time.
time, actually, so I want to give them a big round of applause.